Hey, everybody, welcome back to Retained Trust. I've got my good friend here, Greg Hickman from Alt Agency on the call. And we were talking before, and this is a pretty cool sort of touch point here. Greg has helped over 900 agency owners now grow, build, and do more with their agencies, get more success out of it, or get more out of their lifestyle that they want from it. Greg, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Alt Agency as a business and how this kind of came to be. And then we'll dig into a whole bunch of questions from there.
Yeah. So as it currently stands, I would kind of classify us as kind of a consulting and education platform, if you will, helping, like you said, agencies, service providers, freelancers really productize their services and their expertise so that they can monetize that, not just their labor. That was created out of, I guess, like we stumbled into it. I created my agency at the time, or growing agency, in 2015 was around like marketing automation. And we were building sales funnels, marketing funnels for a lot of like authors, speakers, coaches. We were behind the scenes of like John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. We were building out a lot of the campaigns and basically the automation team behind Dan Martell, kind of early days before he blew up with SaaS Academy and many others. And we were doing the, get them in for a project, keep them on a retainer thing. And Dan was actually one of my coaches at the time as well. And, he basically said like, this model is not really scalable. So whenever you decide to like pivot out of it, just take good care of me, because I'm telling you this as a coach, but I'm also a customer. So just take good care of me, which was, really insightful. But it came from a place of, I was already thinking that, but we had hit a point where on the outside, it looked good. Had good big name clients, but we were very much like embedded into a lot of these clients' teams. And I remember we hit the point where it's like, well, in order to take on any more business, I need to hire one more person, but we don't have that business in yet, which is more of like my fault. Like it's like an economics, like we did the numbers and all that stuff wrong. And like, but we blew up also way too quick. But it was also that moment that like I kind of had the chance to reflect and say like, am I building what I really wanted to be creating in the first place? Because my background is from like mostly big agency, 400 person, part of Omnicom. I also did some stints at some startups, and I ended client side with like a very large international retail brand. And so like I came from big, complex, managing a bunch of people. And, at the time this was all happening, we were, I think like 13 people, flex between full-time and fractional. And I was like, I don't want more people. Like I'm already not enjoying what we're doing. And to have to just be able to hire someone, like there needs to be a better way. And kind of within that same window of time, I was on a sales call with a prospect, and I was like, hey, look, we have a wait list, like maybe 3 months, like you can put a deposit down. And, he kind of said, he's like, is there any way you can like show me what to do? I have someone that knows how to use, at the time it was called Infusionsoft, now it's Keep. I have someone internally that knows how to do this. Can you just show them what to do? And at the time I was like, I don't even know what that means. What does that look like for you? And he's like, can you like give us the campaigns or show us the campaigns, like hop on a few calls? And so I said, all right, like, let's give it a shot. I was pretty much delirious. I think I blacked out. I don't know what happened, but he's like, how much? And I was like, 7,500.
Right. You just make up a number. Yeah.
I just quoted like half of what we normally charge. And he was like, done. And I hung up the phone and I'm like, I don't even know what just happened. I just made $7,500 for what seems like is going to be way less work than what we charge 15 for. And so then I basically bundled up all of the stuff that we do. I just like handed it to him. I had a bunch of SOPs, gave him SOPs, recorded a couple Loom videos. And I said, hey, like I'll hop on a couple calls when you have questions. And it was like, they loved it. And it was like seamless. And that was when I then was like, can I do this in a more leveraged way? And we launched our first like one-to-many cohort, if you will, early 2017. And then I never looked back. So like big agency, hit the wall. I was building what I escaped. I didn't want to keep building it that way. Felt like there had to be a different way, and kind of stumbled into, what many will call like group coaching, even though everyone that calls himself a coach isn't actually a coach. And people aren't selling coaching programs, but it's just a hot thing. So they call it coaching.
Sure.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's really cool. And we're going to talk about a lot of these themes you just brought up. I'm glad you mentioned like productization. That's a really big one that I know you espouse, and I'm a big fan of too. And so I think we'll have something to talk about there, as well as more about, I'll call it the service ladder that you kind of built up, or product ladder, however you want to discuss that. Tell me, like, how do you describe alt agency today? If, somebody like me comes up to you and is like, oh, what do you do, Greg? What's your kind of elevator pitch?
Yeah, I mean, it really I'm horrible at this, first of all. So like, even though I should be really good at it.
You gave me a good story, but I didn't get the elevator pitch. So that's why
Yeah. It kind of depends on who I'm talking to. Like in a case like where I'm talking to someone that understands it, I basically just say, we're a training and consulting company. We help small agencies scale.
Yeah. So that's the simple version. And I know that to do that, you guys have built out this product ladder, again, of like everything from one-on-one with you. If I want to I assume that's the top of the ladder. I get one-on-one time with Greg, and then down to like a course, which is much more hands-off. And like, you're basically reselling the same thing 1,000 times. How do you sort of divide or segment up your market to think about who gets which offering? Do you even worry about that? Do you let them pick? Like, how do you think about that?
So like zoom out real fast, how I kind of look at this is, and this is all just based on my experience, so like take it with a grain of salt, but the premise of like what an alt agency is, alternative agency, like an alternative path to creating an agency, is predicated on a handful of core principles or frameworks, if you will, one of which is that there are different types of buyers. And the 3 different types of buyers are clients, members, and customers. You could easily call all of them clients if you want, but for the sake of understanding the differences in them, we've given them different labels. And I would even throw in a 4th if you really wanted to and put subscribers in there. And so if it's a pyramid, at the top is clients, then I would say subscribers, then members, and then customers. And as you move from the top to the bottom, you go from, clients being something that is low in volume, but high in effort. And at the bottom, customers are low in effort, but high in volume. And typically the different ways in which you serve people will fall within one of the, be aligned with one of those buyers. There's more to it than that, but like the promise also, is a factor. But what we found to be true is that, and there's a lot of studies that talk about this, like when you look at your total addressable market or who your ICP is, ideal client profile, like there's really only some will say 1% to 3% of people that are like probably in market to buy your main thing at any given point. And when your main thing is the cash cow, and that's the only way you make money, it's like real difficult to get people into your world, build trust, because there's no other offers. And, some people come into your world and they might just need a taste right now. They need to see that you know what you're talking about. And the only way to see that from most companies right now is the $60,000 project or whatever. And I think, especially with where the market is going, which I know is a different topic, if the only thing that you sell is, multiple 5 figures, I think you're in a world of hurt moving forward, or at least going to be. And so the fact is, there's different types of buyers that have different needs, and you can package your core capabilities and services in ways that accommodate them and meet them where they are at for what they are looking for at that stage of their buyer journey. That's sort of the premise. And so, loosely speaking, more of your one-on-one, done-for-you things are classified as client-related offers, because again, it's higher effort if it's, more done for you. And then the lower level is you're kind of going into more scalable one-to-many, zero fulfillment, like a book would be a customer offer.
To make it real concrete for those, and I love this analogy. Do you know Jonathan Starker? Have you ever heard anything?
I know of him, yeah.
He was the first one who exposed me to this idea of a product or service ladder. I'm sure it's been said a million times, but I love this idea. Let's take a real concrete example for those who might be new to it. Say you're a PPC agency, and your typical, top of the ladder, so to speak, is you will go sit down with a client, plan out their campaigns, run their campaigns, manage them, and make sure that their ad spend is executed well and it works, right? So that's the top. Now, the next level down might be, hey, we also have this community where you can join and get direct access to us and other people in the world that are doing PPC, maybe in other industries, and you can compare notes and share best practices. So that's like a monthly membership fee to be in part of our community. And then the next level down might be, oh, you don't want to join the community for $100 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever, but you do want to get access to some of our things we've learned. And maybe we have a best practice guide that gives you a bunch of templates and things that we've learned about running PPC that you could download once for $100, right? So now you've got these three distinct offerings at like 100, 1,000, and then 10,000 plus that you can run by people. And yeah, like you said, Greg, great way to capture more of the market that as a client only type business, you just couldn't do anything for $1,000 a month.
Yeah. And the thing that I love about it, and I think our clients like and members like about it, is that based on your goals from like income to, we'll just call it simplicity or team size, and what your schedule of and like lifestyle looks like, how you think about what offers you're going to create in that pyramid will look different than the next person, because the person who's like wants to be not involved in clients at all we actually have someone like one of our former members has one of the largest communities on AI on Facebook. And he is a former agency owner, exited his agency, and he's like, I never want to be on a client call again. And so everything is one to many, but he has such a huge audience from his content that he sells tons and tons, hundreds of like $97 workshops and recordings and like one-off courses where there is zero fulfillment tied to it. And like, that's what he wants. And so like, he's going to have a lot of offerings in that customer layer with a few in that member layer and like zero in the client layer, because he wants nothing to do with that. And so the mix could look different for everybody, which I think allows for a lot of different options.
Yeah.
But one thing that I didn't hear in the Jonathan example, Jonathan Stark, and again, there's different ways to slice and dice it, I think, and it's not always applicable for every single person. But one of the things we help our folks do is distill what they do like into one core framework that kind of achieves a specific outcome. And at each layer, you're really finding different ways to deliver the same outcome with different vehicles. And so I find that to be, if you can pull it off, way more effective, because it's all just repeating what you already know works. An example of ours was at the client level, when we were doing stuff for them, we would build out their evergreen webinar funnel to sell their course. Our Done With You program, which was that cohort that I told you we launched, was just a 10-week version of launching your evergreen webinar funnel to sell your course. I'm repurposing all of my assets and knowledge from doing that same service. Then the customer offer could be buy the pre-built automation with my SOPs and do it yourself. It's at the end of the day, no matter which version you chose, you will have a webinar funnel that gets you something that's selling your course. It's just, which vehicle do you want to take to get there, versus I can work with you on this, or I can give you a template that does this other thing, which you can also have. But I think you find, or at least I've found, that when it's all built around one core framework, it's really about like unbundling and bundling from that one framework, versus like, I got this offer that solves this problem over here. This thing solves a different problem over here, which again, can still work and might be more in alignment with what you were trying to create. But if you can deliver the same outcome with just different vehicles.
I think that's a really good distinction. I'm glad you mentioned that, because my next question was going to be, sort of the obvious downside I see to having multiple service offerings or, in different tiers is that if they don't all address the same problem, you'd have to market three different things. And that's just expensive and time consuming, right? It's the answer when you don't have clients in your agency is not go start a new service and try to market that too, because you already couldn't market the first one, right? But I like the point you bring up here is that if all of them answer the same basic problem and need, it's just different levels of involvement or budget, it's kind of this sliding scale, right? Then you can market them all the same way. And then you're just like capturing all of that down into the same funnel and saying, you either give people three options or you say you start with this one and you move up to this one. It depends again on the offer. But I like that mindset a lot.
Yeah. So if I could get everybody to do it that way, that would be the most preferred. The next most preferred would be, I think, closer to that, but not as far as the original example that, we were talking about through Jonathan. But it was like, if you look at the client journey and what problems they're experiencing leading up to and even after your core thing, you could potentially unbundle and or solve smaller, you kind of deconstruct your big thing into one or two smaller things that okay, well, the first offer is solving what I believe to be the most immediate pain that they all have. But upon solving that, they now have another problem, which my next thing solves.
Yep, that's right.
So my point there being the one outcome with different vehicles, if you can pull it off, amazing. The next one is, how do I unbundle and reorganize the problems I can solve and kind of make them available in a binge-worthy sequential buying process that makes them easier to sell, but also keeps them in my world, right? Yeah. If that makes sense. So, solve the first, immediate pain, and then that creates the next pain that your follow-on offer.
That's right. Yeah, I'll give, again, a pretty concrete example here. Running a content agency, I see a lot of this where, day one, the problem is, what do we write about? Strategically, what makes sense given our target market and our messaging and our product? And then that once you solve that problem, your next question is, well, who's going to write it? And then the next question is, who's going to promote it? And so we tend to bundle together packages that maybe start with just one of those components, depending on where their need is, and then sort of build it up from there. And to your point, you can get somebody in a small entry point of just, hey, let's just work together for a month on getting a strategy in place. You can decide to go execute it yourself, or you can work with us for that, but that's one step at a time. And, going to your earlier broader point about where the market's going, especially for small agencies that still have to really prove themselves, don't have the name recognition, super important that you're able to give an accessible offer that someone can realistically fit into their budget versus the $100,000 signing, which takes months and months of schmoozing with the right people way up in the C-level to get. Again, if you can get there, good, but you may want to have some of these smaller entry points to keep the blood flowing as you're closing those big ones. Yeah. So you touched on productization. It's kind of, we've been edging around it here. So I feel like productization is one of these skills that as an agency owner, once you get it and you understand how to sort of constrain your offerings to where they are somewhat productized. And of course, there's degrees here. Some people are super highly and some it's kind of loosely, but either way, once you get it, you just get it. And agency owners who get this, just they productize the shit out of things, and it's amazing. And they get a lot of repeatability and a lot of advantages from it. But a lot of people struggle with just actually locking themselves into a very specified offering. Why is that, Greg? In your experience, what holds agency owners back from really putting constraints around what they do and don't do?
I'll say that most cases when that happens, and I'd love to know if this is where you see it, but it tends to happen more so with the owner who would consider themselves a creative services provider, like brand identity or web design or, some sort of graphics or something where they are, and as they should, very in tune with, and what's very important to them is the creative process, creative exploration. They will tell you that they love the idea of every client being different. And like, I think that's like, they typically, when they hear productization, they think that that means no more creativity. And so I think that's kind of the main obstacle for a lot of people, which, as you dive into the world of productization, again, it's a spectrum, right? Like there's different levels to it. You can be, productize, right? So there's custom, product. And as you move from custom to product, you are getting more productized. And so like, it doesn't mean you have to jump to the whole side. Like you can just move 3, 4, 5 notches in and be more productized. So like there's still a creative element to it. But I think that's really where most people get hung up. It's something I say to our clients a lot that isn't necessarily related to this, but sort of is. Like we were on a call today with one of our members, and they just start articulating like, okay, so if this happens and and I'm like, dude, you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist yet. And like, I think a lot of these, more so the creative folks, are like, I can't productize because I won't be creative. And it's like, we don't know if that's actually true yet until we start moving in that direction. And just the idea that you think it could be is limiting how much more systematic your business can be. And that's actually where I've like, for a little while, it's funny, we get a lot of people coming to us and we still get it a little bit, but they'll say, I know I need to do this, but like, I just don't know what I would productize yet. And they just cannot get themselves to move forward with anything because they can't see what they have that could be productized. And the reality is, if they knew, they would have already done it. And so for all of these folks, all of them, I'm not even that much smarter than them or anything. It's like, you're just too close to it, and I've happened to see 900 variations of this and have really yet to see anyone that can't be more productized.
Totally. Yep. I agree with you. I think your number one reason there that like with a lot of creative agency types that it will squelch their creativity or it'll kind of limit their potential to work with certain clients is like the other thing that's a huge deterrent to productization, or at least that it's a false deterrent. I think this is a false dichotomy of like constraints means you can't be creative. I think that's not true. I think typically constraints force creativity, and they also allow you to have the bandwidth to actually pursue creative things. And so what I mean is like, as an agency owner where every project has no SOP and sort of no standardization, you need to be heavily involved in every single client project. And you can't go experiment on a client's dime with things you've never tried on your own. So where do you develop the time to actually do R&D, to actually like see what's new and happening and keep up with trends? You can't, because you're constantly doing client work. Versus you productize a little bit, you can kind of pull back from the business a bit more, give more of that execution work to your team and allow them to be some of the creative spark there. And you can sit back and see, like, is this really working? Is this the trend? Is this where things are going? Do I need to evolve our offerings? Like, it just lets you step back a level. And I think a lot of people miss that part of the trade-off. The other thing I'll say that I see is people just being afraid they won't get enough work if they limit their offerings. And this is, again, like lots of false assumptions here, because they assume that if I put in my offering, we do PPC for SaaS companies doing over 10 million in revenue. Let's say, I just pick a narrow market and I go with that. And a company with $1 million in revenue that's a SaaS company comes in, they're going to see that and they're just going to like run away. It's like, first of all, that doesn't happen. Second of all, it just makes it easier for people who are the right fit and you do service best to opt in. And so that like, the more you can productize that offering and the way you sell it and package it, the more you actually attract the people who are a good fit for it, because they see, oh, this is for me, So again, it's one of these things you get it. And when you don't, like, you're going to struggle for a while.
I still have yet to find the first time I ever heard the word productized, and I've tried to trace it down, still, I always come back to the book Built to Sell.
Sure. Yeah.
Which John Morello, which the whole book, again, the first time I think the word productized came into existence, the whole book's about a creative agency. So it's like, I'm like, all right, you're the creative, go read Built to Sell, because it's about a full service creative firm that boils down into just focused on logos. It's like, clearly they're not giving the same logo to every client. Like they do a 5-step process. They called it their 5-star process. And it's like, no matter whose logo they are doing, they always follow the exact same 5-step process in order to get the desired logo for the client. And so it's like, that is, a repeatable process that always gets your client and your team to the same outcome at the end of the day. Like, it's not like you're just using clip art and, giving them the same, everyone gets the same logo. Like, obviously that wouldn't work. So it is very about the process in which and the boundaries in which you will follow and adhere to get to the outcome.
Yeah, for sure. So I imagine with your business, and we're kind of jumping around, but I'm kind of curious about Alt Agency as a company. I imagine you can keep it pretty lean because you're sort of like one-on-one time is relatively limited. So you're not going to take on too many clients at once, but you've got these like repeatable offerings in the community and courses. Like, you've probably got, I assume you have some freelancers and other people helping you out with it, but like, what's it look like?
The irony is also that even in this model that we're in, you can definitely scale it with more people, which we were doing. We were at 13 people in 2023, 3 salespeople, 3 closers, 3 like appointment setters, fractional coaching team, copywriter, media buyer, myself, ops person, client success, community manager, all that. Like, so there were like 13 people. That probably was like 9 full-time equivalents, close to. And that was when, honestly, like, we were like scale, like, for no real good reason. And I actually was like, I'm building something that I don't even like right now. And so mid 2023, we scaled back. We are currently 4 full-time people with like 3 to 4 fractional that would probably equate to 1 other full-time equivalent. So we're probably 5 full-time equivalents. 2 of the full-time are overseas. So like economically also really effective. And myself and my number 2, who's been with me from the beginning, are in the US. So like low overhead, very nimble to run what we're running right now.
Yeah, I imagine.
Sorry, was there I think there was a second part to the question, but
I was just kind of curious the makeup, but that's helpful. And again, this is where I actually really like what you just brought up there, which is a lot of agency owners, in my experience, don't know what it is they really want out of their agency. So you'll ask them like, what are you trying to do? What are your goals this year? And they say, well, I guess we want to grow. And you're like, okay, well, how much are you actually investing of your profits into sales and marketing? And how solidly do you know your market? Are you actually doing the activities that will drive growth? Or are you just saying, I want to grow because it would be nice if I had more money? And so it's like, if your goal is just, I want to make an extra $50,000 next year, you don't have to grow to do that. To your point, it's like, there's different levers to pull. You could, operationalize stuff, make it more productized. You can move, labor overseas. And then for other business owners, honestly, like, I think a lot of agency owners, they just want a good lifestyle business that they can bake the pies every day in. And I mean, there's some flaws in that logic because eventually you may not want to take a day off from baking pies. But like, I do think it's important to be direct and honest with yourself about what you really want out of this, because it's easy to fall into that trap. And it sounds like you've been there. I've definitely been there.
Totally. Yeah. One of the first things we have people do when they come into our world is we have this training. It's called the business lifestyle return. It's like, what sort of return do you want to get from the business, and how does that impact your schedule, your life, how you spend your energy on what sorts of activities inside the business? And it's like a guiding star for a lot of our folks, because we'll be talking with the client and they'll say something. I'll be like, oh, that kind of like sounds counter to what you've originally said. Like, I think first you should go revisit your business lifestyle return and see how would you have to make any compromises on that? And they'll come back and they're like, oh my God, like I just mapped out what I was going to do and put it against my business lifestyle return. And it's like the complete opposite of what I actually want to create. And like, now I can see that I was going to go down this dumb path. And I think, and I actually have videos on this too. It's one of my mentors he always used to say, everyone thinks the hardest thing is knowing what you want. A lot of people have been quoted saying like the hardest thing is to, know what you want. And he goes, but I don't think that's true. He's like, the hardest thing is admitting what you want. Because once you admit what you want, you're going to get everyone's judgment and opinion on, oh, well, like you could go bigger than that, or like you could do it this way or that way. And then you start to second guess yourself. And so like we talk about that a lot internally. It's like, knowing what you want, but also being willing to admit to what you want. And like that exercise we take people through is sort of like I have to look at mine like every few days just to like recalibrate my brain. Remember like, all right, like if I say yes to this opportunity, how does that impact what I have already said and know that I want? Oh my God, like it would make me have to change certain things. Oh, nope. Like I'm not willing to compromise, on that. And it's like having that standard. So yeah, I think understanding, and the reality is that actually takes work. It's not easy to decide what you want and what you don't want. And which is why I think what ends up happening is you see what other people have, and you just blindly adopt someone else's definition of success. And you don't even have like the full details on like if they're even happy or not. You're just like now mimicking and modeling someone else, which, is definitely good to get traction in the beginning. But like if they're building something that you would never want, and now you're on that same path, like, well, guess what you're going to end up with, Yeah. So I do think it takes more so time, but also like the awareness to be like, all right, you got to actually define what you want for yourself before a lot of these things can play out.
I find, and I'm glad you brought this up too, because this is something else I find in a lot of really successful entrepreneurs who maybe not just even successful, but happy entrepreneurs, is that they have a lot of self-awareness and focus both. Like they are aware of the things that they're good at and not good at, where they should spend their time, where they shouldn't spend their time. And not to say they won't take on something challenging and grow. They like absolutely people do, but like they just know where their time is best spent and what they really want out of their business. They're aware of that. And then same with like, and they focus relentlessly on that. And so they say no to a lot of things where, it's tempting as a new business owner. I see this a lot in really like companies that are under that $100,000 a month mark that are just trying to figure out like, what do we do here? Like, what am I doing here? Like they're constantly waffling on like the marketing strategies they're trying, their focus, their offering, their clients they want. Like they have no focus and lock in on like, this is the thing I'm going to do. And it comes down to maybe some self-awareness, maybe some just fear of limiting their options. Maybe it's just seeing what other people have and they want to emulate that. But yeah, it's a dangerous trap.
Totally. And I mean, and if you're under 100K a year, all of those things are totally normal. Like you kind of have to like, it's also if you're doing 100K a year and you're still trying to find product market fit, who do you want to be serving? What are you good at? What even gets clients results? And then you're comparing yourself to, someone who's already doing 10 million a year. Like if you're trying to do those moves that they're making, like they're in season 10 of their business and you're in season 1, like it doesn't even make any sense. So also, I think don't beat yourself up for being at the stage of the journey that you're in, but make sure that like, if you're in season 1 or stage 1 and you're looking at someone at stage 10, be sure to like see what they looked like when they were at stage 1 or season 1 and compare yourself to that, because you can easily start working on like the right tactic in the wrong order. And that'll take you, further down a rabbit hole than, following the right, solving the right problem in the right order. Like so much of this is sequence, right? And like, you gotta understand where you're at in the sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this brings up a really good case too for community. And I'm going to plug the alt agency community. I'm sure has a lot of this, but whatever the community is for you. So back when I first started my first business 6 years ago, I didn't have a community of business owners around me, and it was one of these things where there's all sorts of rockiness in those first few years. I mean, there's still rockiness, but it was especially pronounced, and I felt it especially hard in the early days because everything mattered so much. And I remember being like, is this normal? Like, does every entrepreneur in the first 5 years like really struggle this much to just be like, am I doing the right thing? And is this like
every year?
Yeah, do we right. And so I got into, some communities. I joined the EO chapter here in Chicago, Entrepreneurs Organization, but there's lots of other good communities out there. And like, point is like, you get to meet these people who've been entrepreneurs for 10, 20 more years. And you see, they all have that. They still have it. They even at 10x, 20x bigger companies than me, they still have this uncertainty, this fear, this like unsure about if they're going to really hit their goals. And if they, if they could only have another $10 million in revenue, then they'd be happy and they'd be ready to retire. It's like, you're never going to be finished, So anyway, just seeing it with other people is really helpful because it gives you this like, it normalizes
100%.
it, and you got to get that somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it adds perspective, right? And like, it's super powerful to see and know someone that's like 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of you and avoid potentially some of the mistakes because, you can kind of see them right there. And then also just most entrepreneurship is fairly lonely. And so, going through, if you're on a similar path, and that's like what a lot of our members like align with, like they're all building something similar. What it looks like internally to get there might look different, but like they're all doing it for the same reasons. Like they're very aligned on values and the type of like life that they want to create and how they want to create it. And like getting in the right environment is definitely powerful.
Yeah. Okay. We've been talking about stuff that I think is pretty universally accepted as like good practice in agency, but you had a couple hot takes and I'm going to dig them out of YouTube and you can, I know you got to make hot takes on YouTube, but there were a couple things there that I was like, I want to double click on this and see what you really say.
Sure.
Like, so you mentioned like LinkedIn is not your jam. It's not where you get clients. Like I think you put that in your LinkedIn. So that, so that turned me over to your YouTube channel. Then I started going through your shorts and all that and stuff. So anyway,
which we killed the shorts too because I hate shorts.
Well, so they're gone, but it's also multiples. Anyway, do you talk about how agency owners maybe like they say, oh, my clients aren't on YouTube, so I'm not going to spend any time there. But you kind of disagree and said like, well, maybe zig when everybody else zags. Like, walk me through your logic there. Like, why be on YouTube if I'm serving business to business clients that are like, effectively they seem like they're all on LinkedIn? Like, what's the advantage there?
Yeah, well, I mean, statistically, the data shows that they are on YouTube also. I mean, it's the second largest search engine in the world. Like, you're going to tell me your clients don't use YouTube to search for stuff? Likely false. And the amount of time on platform, like active users, is like, I just did a video on it. I forget the exact number, but it was like people spend more time on YouTube than they do most of the other platforms combined. And depending upon your market, your avatar, like there's definitely opportunity with LinkedIn. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have some clients that crush on LinkedIn, which I'll circle back to a point on that. But like we've run into a lot of people that like, if you are in kind of the marketing arena, a lot of it's like you're just marketing to other marketers. And like, if you are dealing with, like the high level executives in these organizations, like they log into LinkedIn like once a month. And so like you're publishing daily and like they're hardly seeing it anyway because of like who your ICP is. And so like, yeah, they have a profile, but like, are they actively using it and consuming content and using it the way that you're hoping that they're using it? I think I see it working way better for, which again, kind of marketers ruin everything, but like how every other platform works, like selling to the other marketers or like, the SEO person selling to the other SEO person, the agency selling to the other agency, like those, if that's your market, great. You'll still do well, but they need to be active on there for it to make sense, which goes back to another like core kind of belief as an alt agency is like, you have to be bought in or believe that content, like creating content consistently, growing your audience, is arguably one of the most important activities you should be focused on in your business. And obviously that would then lead you to like, well, what platform should you be creating on? I think if you are, honestly, if you're doing under $1 million, you just should figure out how to do one platform well before you're on multiple platforms. And then you can expand from there. But I think you kind of have to look at, and I've been guilty of this too, like everyone's like LinkedIn. And like last year I was like, I'm going to do LinkedIn and like finally going to take it seriously. I just am not a consumer of LinkedIn. I don't enjoy being on it. I don't like logging into it. I see that it's improved and I see that there's opportunity, but I'd rather be on YouTube and I'd rather be on Instagram as a consumer. Like I actively enjoy being on those platforms for myself. And so when I am creating content for YouTube or Instagram or active for business, it doesn't feel like work. And so it's easy and it's sustainable. I'm also a video first type of person. Like it's much easier for me to click record and start talking than it is to write. I have friends that are really good writers. And so it's like, well, then choose a platform where you feel comfortable. Like I feel comfortable with video. So again, Instagram and YouTube work really well for me. And people that are really good at writers are typically like LinkedIn and like a newsletter. And so you kind of have to lean into your strengths there because any platform can work. And I do believe for most of us, your audience is probably on all of them. I think there's definitely examples where it's like, they're probably not on LinkedIn, but they're definitely on Instagram, and there's probably vice versa. So you just kind of have to, I think, what are your strengths, video writing, combined with, where are you an active participant? Because the second it starts to feel like work is when you're going to stop. And then that channel is not going to work for you anyway.
Totally. Oh, it's so funny you say this because this is my exact answer to when founders ask me, whether they're really early on or they've got a little bit of traction. They're like, how do you they're like, Karl, you write really good content. Is that what I should do? Should I be writing blog posts? Or they say like, I heard your podcast. That's really cool. Like, should I do a podcast? And I say, what do you want to do? What will give you energy? If literally going to 10 networking events a week is what gives you energy and you get so jazzed up and it doesn't feel like work and you're meeting clients that are productive conversations, go do that. Don't bother on LinkedIn. Don't bother on writing. But if you like to sit down and spend half a day writing a blog post every 2 weeks or every week or whatever your cadence is, go freaking do it because you're going to stick with it if you like it and you get that feedback loop of like, this is beneficial. And like you said, all those channels can work. There's no right and wrong answer, especially early on when you haven't maximized any of your channels. You're just like trying to get to a baseline here. So it's like you want to have some channel that isn't just luck and word of mouth. And if there's a channel out there that you like that is just easy for you and you get it naturally, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and some of your clients are there, it doesn't have to be all of them, just some of them, then absolutely just lean into it. And then, 6 months later, a year later, if you've got steady deal flow from that, decide you want to hire somebody for the other channels to spin out your content in 100 different ways. Like, fine, go do all that eventually. But like, you don't need to like spread your focus on a million things or try to do something just because Karl is or Greg is. It's like, we all got to pick our own path.
And just because there are now AI tools that can make some of it even easier doesn't mean that you need to.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. And it's, I think that's a really good point. I have, plenty of personal examples of articles I've written full on from scratch and, no AI at all. And yeah, people resonate with them. It's like some of them make a lot of traffic, some of them don't, but either way I get responses all the time. Okay, Greg, as we're wrapping up here, the thing I always like to ask people about is I build my own theoretical book list of things I'm someday going to read, which is now becoming so long, there's no way I'm ever going to get there. Because if I do one of these shows a week, I get one new recommendation a week. And of course, I don't read one book a week. So my infinite book list is growing. Give me a recommendation. Anything you've read in the last couple of years that you've been like, ooh, that really resonates with me, or that's something I wish every entrepreneur would read?
Oh, man. I read a lot. Die with Zero.
Yes.
Has someone already mentioned it?
No, I don't think so, but I love it.
Okay.
I can't remember if I read the whole thing or just heard the guy on a podcast.
It's one of those books that like the headline kind of tells you the whole book, but there's some nuggets in there that really resonated with me.
Give us the premise, because I think it is a good, the quick pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. The premise is, a lot of people try to make all this money, and then they're going to go do all these experiences when they retire or whatever. But depending upon the types of experiences, you might not be physically capable of even doing those things at that age. And so it's like, how do you start living now and having those experiences now? And when you die, like have spent all of your money doing the things that you want to do versus like trying to die with like all this money in your bank account. And the term that really kind of I come back to, he calls them, he talks about how in business is like, you pay yourself a dividend, from maybe your profit every quarter or whatever. He talks about this concept of like memory dividends. How do you go create experiences and memories that literally are paying you dividends for the rest of life? And that one really hit for me because like my dad always has this quote, like, it's all about the memories. And it's like, there's certain experiences that I've like backpacking through Europe. We meet new friends. Somehow it comes up. I tell that story. I'm reliving it. And I'm like, that trip still to this day, talking about it makes me happy. Like, and it's like, how do I just have more of those, versus just like working, really landed for me at the time of reading it.
I love it. I think this is super important to think about, especially because the old school way of thinking about like work life and retirement life just doesn't apply anymore. I mean, we're knowledge workers where, and again, there's your health issue, your likelihood of health issues will increase as you get older. So you should absolutely have money saved away. I'm not saying, don't save for retirement or don't have any comfort or whatever, but it's like, we can do our jobs that you and I do as long as our brains are working effectively. I mean, like, honestly, like, some version of my job will be possible at 70, and I see plenty of 70-year-olds who are still active and working and want to be doing their job. So like work will be there, right? Like you don't need to retire at 65 because your body is just broken and you can't do it anymore like it used to be in, the early 1900s. So I think it's like, rethinking our way of how we think about retirement and the traditional wisdom there is important, but then also like allowing yourself to have these experiences, it will mean trade-offs, right? Like you 100%. Will say no to certain clients, or you'll say no to a certain job, or you'll say no to like, a certain other opportunities that would have required you to be in a certain place at a certain time or something. But like, yeah, the memories matter, man. Like, what do you come out of this with?
Yeah. And I mean, even like with our, like what we teach and kind of preach, like we're definitely not for everybody. Like there's still people out there that, want to scale like a traditional style agency. And, they're, I love Hormozy as much as the next guy. Like I've had dinner with them and they're great human beings. Like there are people that want to like build $100 million company. And like, that's just like not anything I'm interested in. And if you're like smaller is better, or you can have a big business income wise, but have it still be super simple and lean, like that's possible, and it's more possible now than ever, and is only getting more possible. Like we will see, at least I'm 42, I'll be 43 in a few months. Like before I die, there will be a like $1 billion one person company for sure. Like there will be like,
love it.
So like now is like the time for like, I think being able to get more with less, if that is what you're geared towards. But there's some people that just, they want what they want. And that's cool. Like kudos to you. I'm not trying to change what you want, but if you're like lean, mean, high income, flexibility, like that's my jam.
Awesome. Greg, this is a great place to leave it. I don't know if you planned on wrapping up right there, but I love it. This is good timing wise. So let's do it. We'll have to do this again because we've got lots of similar experiences and ideas to trade. So, Greg, I know we can find out about you at altagency.com for anybody who wants to work with Greg or join the community or look into it at least, and the courses. Where else do you recommend people reach out to you?
gregsvideos.com will redirect you to my YouTube channel. So go to YouTube. We release a video pretty much every week. It's coming soon, maybe a couple more than that. But yeah, that's like our main hub. If you've liked what we've talked about, I have hundreds of videos on the topic of productization, monetizing expertise, and where I think the agency model as it stands is going. So yeah, gregsvideos.com will take you right there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. This is really fun, and we will talk soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.